Have you ever walked into a place where every smile suddenly vanished, like you didn't belong there at all? That's how it felt when Marcus and Alicia stepped into the Silver Plate, a cozy restaurant in downtown Chicago. The chatter softened, forks paused midair, and eyes followed them to their table. Marcus tried to ignore it, pretending to read the menu, but Alicia's hand trembled slightly under the tablecloth. She had felt this silence before, the kind that screamed louder than words. Ethan, the waiter, stood a few feet away, whispering something to another staff member. His smirk was clear as daylight. When he finally walked over, he didn't greet them like he did the others. Instead, he dropped two menus on the table and said coldly, "We are full tonight. Might take hours before your order's ready." Marcus looked around. Half the restaurant was empty. "That's fine," he replied calmly, but Alicia's eyes glistened with quiet anger. Ethan shrugged, turned his back, and walked away as if serving them was beneath him. Minutes passed. No water, no service, only stares. The soft jazz music couldn't hide the tension burning in the air. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he held his temper. "We'll leave," Alicia whispered, her voice cracking. "No," Marcus said, his voice steady but fierce. "We'll stay. They'll see who we are." His words carried both pain and pride. Just as Alicia stood to leave, a firm voice echoed from behind. "What seems to be the problem here?" Everyone turned. Standing by the counter was Mr. Raymond, the owner himself, and the expression on his face promised this night was far from over. Before we go deeper into what happens next, take a second to subscribe to Stained Humanity. Because stories like this, real, raw, and eye-opening, deserve to be heard by everyone who still believes respect has no color. Mr. Raymond's voice sliced through the tension like a knife. Every head in the Silver Plate turned toward the counter as he walked closer, his polished shoes echoing against the marble floor. Ethan froze, the fake confidence draining from his face. "Sir, I was just," he started, but Mr. Raymond raised his hand sharply. "Don't," he said quietly. The restaurant fell silent. Marcus and Alicia stood, unsure of what to expect. Mr. Raymond gave them a polite nod. "I'm terribly sorry for the way you've been treated," he said. "Please sit. You'll be served immediately." Ethan's jaw tightened. He didn't move. Mr. Raymond turned his cold gaze to him. "You heard me." Reluctantly, Ethan picked up a notepad and walked toward the couple, his steps heavy with resentment. "What will you have?" he asked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Alicia looked at him calmly. "Just water to start," she said softly. Marcus studied Ethan's face. He saw not just hatred but fear, a deep insecurity hiding behind arrogance. "Make that 2 waters," Marcus added. Ethan scribbled it down, muttering under his breath, and left. Mr. Raymond stayed for a moment longer, watching Ethan disappear into the kitchen. Then he turned to Marcus and Alicia. "You shouldn't have to face this." "Not here, not anywhere," he said. There was something in his eyes, regret, maybe guilt. He hesitated before adding, "I know that young man's father. Things haven't been easy for him, but that's no excuse." Marcus nodded slowly. "Change never starts easy," he replied. Mr. Raymond gave a faint, sad smile and walked back toward his office. But Alicia couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. Something about Ethan's glare as he passed them didn't feel like surrender. It felt like a storm brewing. And as the night grew colder, that storm was just beginning to rise. If this story made you think, if it made you feel, take a moment to subscribe to Stained Humanity. Because these stories aren't just tales, they're reflections of what still lives among us and what we must stand against. Minutes passed, and Ethan returned with 2 glasses of water. But the way he placed them on the table was almost violent. One glass splashed over the edge, soaking Alicia's sleeve. "Oh, I'm so sorry," he said, the smirk on his face proving he wasn't. Marcus clenched his fists under the table, his patience cracking like thin ice. "That's enough," he said, his voice low but powerful. Ethan leaned closer, whispering, "People like you don't belong in places like this." Alicia gasped softly, and the nearby tables turned their heads. Marcus stood slowly, meeting Ethan's eyes. "What did you say?" he asked. Ethan didn't answer. Instead, he reached for the coffee pot in his hand, pretending to pour another customer's cup. Then, in a moment that froze the whole restaurant, He tilted it just enough for hot coffee to spill across Marcus's arm. The sound of the cup shattering filled the air. Alicia screamed. Marcus stepped back, his sleeve dripping, his face twisted in pain, but not from the burn. It was from the humiliation. For a second, time stood still. Then came Mr. Raymond's voice again, louder this time. "ETHAN." Every eye followed him as he stormed from his office. He saw the mess, saw Marcus clutching his arm, and saw the look of guilt, no hatred, on Ethan's face. Mr. Raymond's jaw tightened. "You're done," he said coldly. Ethan dropped the pot, breathing hard. "You can't fire me for them. You know what my dad said." "Enough," Mr. Raymond shouted. "Your father taught you hate, I taught you work. You failed both." The room went dead silent. Ethan's face twisted between rage and shame. He ripped off his apron and stormed out the door, leaving only the echo of the bell behind him. Alicia hurried to Marcus's side, helping him sit. Mr. Raymond's hands trembled as he said, "I'll call an ambulance." Marcus stopped him. "No need," he said quietly. "It's just a burn. What hurts more is how normal this still feels." Tears welled in Alicia's eyes. Mr. Raymond lowered his head, and in that silence, something inside the restaurant shifted. Maybe for the first time, people saw. Before we step into the final chapter, take a moment to subscribe to Stained Humanity. Because stories like this remind us that silence helps hate grow, and voices like yours can help end it. The next morning, the silver plate was quieter than usual. The same tables, the same music, but the air felt heavy, like the walls themselves were ashamed. Marcus and Alicia returned, not for food, but because Mr. Raymond had called them back. He waited by the door, his expression tired yet sincere. "I owe you both more than an apology," he said. Inside, a few customers whispered, recognizing the couple from last night's scene. Marcus nodded politely and followed Mr. Raymond to a private corner. On the table lay an old photo frame, a woman in a nurse's uniform holding a young boy. Mr. Raymond's voice cracked as he spoke. "That's my mother," he said quietly. "She was the kindest soul I ever knew, and she was black." Alicia's eyes widened. "Your mother," she repeated softly. Mr. Raymond nodded, tears forming in his eyes. "I spent years hiding it. My father hated her family, hated who she was. When she died, I promised I'd build something in her memory, a place of respect, not hate. But last night, I realized I failed her." Marcus sat still, the pain in his arm forgotten. "You didn't fail her," he said. "You stopped it when it mattered." Mr. Raymond shook his head. "I stopped it too late." Then he looked at Alicia, his voice trembling. "When Ethan said those words to you, it felt like hearing my father again. I saw everything I swore I'd never become." There was silence, the kind that carries truth. Then, softly, Alicia said, "Maybe this is how your mother reminds you who you are." Mr. Raymond smiled faintly, tears rolling down his cheek. "You're right," he whispered. "She raised me better, and maybe she raised me for this moment." Marcus reached out his hand. Mr. Raymond took it, gripping it firmly, no longer as a symbol of apology, but of change. Across the restaurant, employees and customers stood quietly, watching something bigger than forgiveness unfold. As they left, the morning sun touched the glass door, reflecting the photo of the woman in uniform. The sign below her picture now read, "In memory of Grace Raymond, the heart behind the silver plate." And in that moment, everyone in the room understood what Marcus had said, that respect has no color, but courage does. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to subscribe to Stained Humanity. Because stories like this aren't just about the past, they're about the world we can still build together.